Yo, 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 what is going on, IK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. You stay classy, San Diego. Oh, I'm so excited, as always. I don't know why. It's a general level of excitement, really, to talk about a lot of these, what I like to refer to as quality information and educational pieces of content. Okay. In today's Infinity Kingdom video, as always, before we get started, make sure you guys sub, like, and of course ring that notification bell. What I would love to talk about today is some of the important areas that I don't want to say take for granted, because really what I want to talk about is the difference between recruiting for your server, right? And I'm going to talk about the differences when you're doing it internally and then externally, right? Internally, you're looking at players that are within other alliances, or any alliances for that matter, within the server you're playing in. And that can come in the form of doing things like merges. It can come in from just doing recruitment in World Chat or Kingdom Chat. Maybe you're messaging players directly. And then external recruitment refers to a little bit more of you doing migration, right? So you're, either reaching out on the Discord, maybe you're going on another social media platform, maybe you know some friends and you message them in game, and you're trying to recruit players to your server that are outside or not in your server. And I want to talk a little bit about what some of the impacts are depending on how you or your server or group of players that are even in those positions go about doing that recruitment. Because I think it's very important when we talk about these things to have realistic expectations on, I don't want to say the damage that can be done, even though it really is damage, right? And a lot of these things, players that have never done recruitment would just never know. And yes, I'm speaking to the 99.99% repeating of you, because the majority of you do not do recruiting. Right, this is an afterthought to most players that are playing these games. You're even hearing me talk about recruiting, and you're like, boss, you recruit? Like, what is this, some Fortune 500 company? Like, it really is. And I'm going to explain to you why it is so important. But before I even get to what some of the benefits are, let me talk about what some of the challenges and some of the hindrances and really kind of after effects that can happen, more so on the rougher end. So let me start off with, when you look in Kingdom Builder Discords, right, especially specifically for Infinity Kingdom, you'll notice that here on the recruitment channels, if we're just talking about the Discord now, there's an alliance recruitment, and then there is a server or jumper recruitment. Now, unfortunately, some people will post ads on here that are specifically just for their alliances, and it's not appropriate. An example would be, if we're just looking at Exhibit A, right, you have this player here who is, right, top, right? So again, an alliance, not really recruiting for a server. And then we have, right, River Rats S33, right, again, recruiting for an alliance, right? So it's, again, general server. I mean, there are some server things here, but you got River Rats. They show River Rats. They show where they're ranked in overall and Lord, right? So even though they put some things in here, they're recruiting for their alliance. If we look here, okay, Jumper, that's cool. Right, the Wolf Pack from, again, the Wolf Pack, right? Keep in mind, this is an alliance from a server. This should go in alliance recruitment. Okay, let's look at a few more. S72 opens. Okay, what do we have here? Migration limit. Okay, great. We have some rules here. Okay, so underrated, right, with S72. This is probably the first ad we've seen so far that doesn't specifically mention a alliance and is more of what I would refer to as a server migration ad. Even if you look at my ad, again, you'll notice here that there's nothing specifically that we say about recruiting for one alliance or another, right? We do mention that we have a fallen family here, but we don't mention anything. We say join S79, right, which is the entire server as a whole. Again, Soto, my boy here, again, recruiting for a woo, right? Again, this is an alliance ad. S8 here from Bunny, again, an alliance ad. Right, S8, right, there's a new Green Level 10 alliance, right? There's specific, again, in the ad, it mentions an alliance, not necessarily recruiting for a server. Same person. We have another guy named Gilgamesh, right, from 107. Never mind, this is a jumper. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Offer tough guys and gals. Blue Faction Alliance, right? Another line. So again, you're seeing a trend here. I don't want to sit here and look through too many ads. But you are seeing a trend. And that trend is that and then also just within its own alliance recruitment section itself, is that again, the majority of the time you're going to have some cross posting that happens. But for the most part, right, there is a difference between if you're going to recruit for your server, a jumper, or an alliance. So this kind of goes into, one post in the appropriate section. But let me talk about why this is so important. The reason it's so important is because when you are recruiting for your server or for your alliance, there are certain situations that you should be recruiting for. And more, I guess, specifically in. Now, let's say you have a server that is unified. And let's say your unified server is, you're working well with other alliances. Do you think that if we're recruiting for our alliances individually, that is more likely to create a potential power imbalance? Or do you think it's more appropriate to recruit for all of the alliances together and then try and spread that power out? I feel like this question, even though was asked in a... God, what's the word that I'm looking for? Right, when you're asking questions that you just already know the answer to. Why am I thinking about this? It's not redundant. That's not the word. When you're asking it's not an obvious, because that is just too basic of a word to use. It's going to come to me. Point is that when you are recruiting in general, right, and this is just my general rule of thumb, I can tell you my experience from doing recruiting has really been a lot. One of the highlights I'll say for my time was when I was recruiting in another kingdom builder, specifically Rise of Kingdoms, when I was in 1196 there. Again, they were number 4 Imperium Kingdom for about 2 years in the game, right, which basically meant they were the top 4, or the 4th strongest kingdom in the entire game. And right, I recruited for them for multiple seasons. And when we recruited, initially, I started out recruiting for my alliance. Because I thought to myself, well, this is what everyone else is doing. Why would I not do the same thing? And also because our alliance needed more active players. And then, as I started getting more involved in recruitment, and I eventually got onboarded to the recruiting department that they had there within the kingdom, and then eventually worked my way up to running the recruiting department and leading it, my perspective shifted. It actually evolved into what I later realized was the most important thing when you are in a truly unified server, and many, if not all, of your current active alliance leads are on the same page. People really believe in whatever goal you have. Is that the best way in these types of servers is that, and this is one of the things you'll hear me talk about very often, is that if you want high player activity, want high player retention, you need to be able to give players a reason to stay. And one of the most important reasons why players would stay in a server is if they feel that they have a chance to be close in power to other alliances. Why do I say that? Well, because when you're participating in certain alliance events, which I don't think there's any going on right now, that I could have used as an example. However, when you look at the power rankings, right? I'll just give you a rough one here. If let's say players in the number 5 or even the number 4 alliance are participating in a server-wide alliance versus alliance event, right? Where let's say they're just having to attack gnomes or gather resources or something like that, where they're doing something in a competitive way, having to attack a bunch of gnome bosses. Right? They're doing something within the game in a PvE-related way where they're trying to climb a leaderboard. Right? Do you think that some players from an alliance at 60 mil power are going to think that when they're looking at an alliance it's almost 90 mil power, that they're going to be able to possibly keep up with that alliance, especially if the number 1 or number 2 alliance are on top of a lot of leaderboards for multiple alliance or AVA type of events within their servers? No. Some of them will think, well, I'm just going to do my bare minimum. I'll just do my minimum tasks. I'll get my minimum rewards. I don't need to overinvest to contribute to the alliance, trying to push higher on the leaderboards to get more rewards for everyone. And that is because visually, you can be demoralized from just looking at leaderboards, in addition to being demoralized on multiple AVA type events where you may see that these number 1 or number 2 alliances are just consistently winning them, or even if it's some alliances that are consistently winning them. That can be demoralizing. That can be demotivating to where players will not want to overinvest. Now, there are some exceptions. An exception to this would be, let's say you're in a war server. In a war server, it's okay, because ideally you basically want to recruit as an individual alliance because you're trying to win the war. Or let's say you're in a server that isn't really completely unified. Not everyone's working together, but everyone's kind of neutral, right? No one's really overly aggressive with one another, and there's not really any, big fights that have happened yet. In that server, you probably would recruit individually because you would rather be stronger than weaker in case anything pops off. But if you are in a unified server, and by unified I mean everyone's on the same page, right, for the top set of active alliances, and everyone is, of the same or similar belief, where they at least agree on the end goals, right? That everyone's working and getting towards, right? Regardless if they agree or disagree, or have a change or a difference of opinion when it comes to the process of how you're getting there. So if you're in a unified server, why would you be like? And this is my question, again, right? Which is kind of already knowing the answer, but there's just no reason to recruit for an individual alliance if you are truly in a unified server. Now, if you're not in a unified, let's say you are in a unified server and you're still recruiting for yourself as an individual alliance, right? What that tells me is that you really are not truly unified. Because if you were, you would have no problem recruiting for everyone in the server. Or even if it's a big group or a certain amount of alliances, then you extend it to other alliances. Right? That's what it really means to be truly unified, is that you are thinking globally and not locally. When I look at these Discord ads, and I think to myself, right, look at how many individual alliances are recruiting for themselves. Right now, yes, some of these are warranted, but then some of these are not, because some of the people that are recruiting on here are from servers that they would claim are unified. Right? We're all together. We all believe the same thing. But if that's the case, why are you only recruiting for your individual alliance? Why is your server as a whole collectively using the same template, the same ad, getting more exposure, and recruiting together? And then you assign 1, 2, 3, however many migration reps, and then you funnel players appropriately to help work on the power balance. Why don't we see more of that? Because I can tell you that's what we do in 79. That's what I was going to do when I was in S8. Same thing that I was going to do when I was in S36. But thankfully, in 79, we have been able to finally get to that point. And it's great when you are able to recruit with the goal in mind of doing it for everyone. And that is where I think the challenge is. And let me point this out. This also is something that will lead to mega alliances being formed. This leads to power imbalance. When you are always constantly recruiting for an alliance individually. And as we said, there are some exceptions, right? If you're in any of the 2 server examples I mentioned, but if you are in a truly unified server and you are still recruiting just for your alliance, you are not unified. I can guarantee you're not unified. Because these are road bumps and hurdles that are going to come up. They may not happen right away, but they will eventually fester, right? Because you're going to keep in mind, not everyone thinks the same way that you do. Like, let's say you're in a leadership position, right? Or you're one of the top alliances, and you think to yourself, oh yeah, we're unified, right? Everyone's on board for the same page, but you're still recruiting for your alliance, even though you're the strongest alliance in the server. What message do you think that sends to some of the other leads, to some of the other officers, to maybe even more of some of the other players in the server? They may think to themselves, well, this is weird. We're all unified and everyone's on the same page, but why are they still recruiting? Why is the power constantly getting more, where there's more power disparity, there's more imbalance, and why are we not getting closer in power? Why are we not catching up? Right? Why are they still trying to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and their power keeps increasing? These are real thoughts, real questions that some players will ask. I know this because I've seen this happen countless times in servers that claim unity, that claim they're all together as one, right? It's one, all for one for all, right? And right, this really comes down to understanding a player's psychology on why they think certain things the way they do based on what they're visually seeing in these types of situations. So if anything, I hope that any of you who are involved in recruiting, for any of you that maybe have some of these thoughts that I went through a couple examples that players can think when they see these things, let me know what you think, right? Is what I'm saying make any sense? Do you not see it? Do you actually see it? Do you have these types of questions yourself? Are you in a unified server, but you see these things happening and you're wondering why they are? Right? Let me know anything and everything you guys are thinking in those comments down below. I hope you enjoyed my educational session here on when it comes to why you would recruit for an alliance versus a server and what those impacts can be and how that can be detrimental at times to a server's overall development. And where it can go. Okay, that's it for me. I'm out. As always, until next time, we will catch y'all later.